I'm a very restless person. Again, I don't know that you would see that in my work. It's funny, a lot of my paintings have found their way into, say, hospitals, places where, or I have a lot of work that has been reproduced on cards through a company in Woodstock, Vermont, and they're usually sympathy cards. So I think the work itself, it seems to project some tranquility. Yeah, I think probably for me painting is largely a meditative exercise. I try not to think about it. I would say my work is anti-intellectual. I'm not thinking when I'm painting. I'm just trying to take my head out of it.
That's really great.
I
That
like-
looks like debris coming up to
That
our
is
shore.
debris. That's Happy Returns. That's one of the Amazon inspired ones. And it is. It's based on a bunch of debris that washed up on I think it was a riverbank actually. Sometimes I don't keep very good notes about. I have a series of those actually.
Well, it's amazing how, it's such a small town. Yeah, I think aside from the store owner,
Okay, so these two I just started. Those are based on piles of dog toys. I mean, and again, I can show you the picture. You wouldn't, they're not going to look like dog toys when I'm done, because that's not what I'm trying to document. So that's a photo.
Oh yeah, you can't tell these are dog toys.
But you can see why I like the composition. It's not something that I would, pull out of my head. Just, I think I'm going to make this weird shaped orange blob. But it has an intrinsic energy. And then, let's see.
So finding composition.
And then that's another one. That's
Yeah.
the other one. It's
Yeah.
just like, I saw them, they caught my eye. I was like, I love all those vibrant colors, and I like the quirky, bizarre shapes, and they kind of fit in with this thought about haphazard, pointless materialism, although, of course, they're dog toys. But, as inspiration, I find that interesting. As interesting as looking out my window and seeing the leaves start to change color. Well, I always hoped I would be an artist. When I was little, that was from as early as I can remember, that's what I wanted. What do you want for your birthday? I never liked dolls or any of that stuff. I just wanted crayons, paints, paper. I used to make drawings on the end sheets of all my books. I loved fairy tales. I loved the illustrations in fairy tales. Maybe one of my earliest influences was N.C. Wyeth and those incredible illustrations that he did in Treasure Island, and obviously I wasn't reading Treasure Island when I was 5. I was reading Tasha Tudor's illustrated fairy tales. But I think my vocabulary, especially all the tree paintings, it's very Tasha Tudor. It's like you could see the Sleeping Beauty with all the garlands of roses. It's so ingrained in my imagination. And as a child, when I played outside, I liked to climb trees. I was never going to good at sports, so I did them, if I had to, but I was happier. I used to spend a lot of time making fairy houses, at the foots, lots of kids do, but at the foots of trees, in the roots, I would build these little things, and I would climb trees, and then I would draw. I was always drawing, coloring, painting, and I always wanted to do that. And I had an affinity in that I could make an apple look round and stuff from a pretty early age, but none of my teachers ever thought I had it in me to be an artist, and I don't know if it's because there was some sort of, I don't know what it was. I think maybe I wasn't very creative, to be quite honest with you. I was dutiful, but maybe it didn't, I was too scatterbrained or too superficial, maybe. Or just because people thought I'd be better at doing something else, because as I said, I thought I was going to be a lawyer.
Right.
But then when I got to college, I was like, oh my God, these people with their economics classes, I can't possibly do this. And so I took as many art classes as I could, and as I already said, I ended up in art history. And then eventually said, it was when I was 40. I'd had my fourth child. I'd been working as a decorative painter for 25 years, but not 25 at that point. I guess maybe just 20 years. And I thought, I'm 40. Like, I don't have to justify what I'm doing to anybody. I don't have to have a fully developed artist statement. I mean, I can paint whatever the hell I want to paint. And if I want to paint landscapes, then who's going to stop me? And I just started painting landscapes, and people started buying them. So I was like, okay, this is good. Yeah. And after about 5 years of that, I changed my, when you fill out your taxes and they ask you what your profession is, and I'd always said painter, because I was a contractor essentially. And then I was like, you know what? I'm an artist. That was very empowering, but I was late to the game. I was 45 at that point. And I just thought, well, that's okay, because this is what I'm doing now. And it's been a nice segue, because I always worked for myself as a decorative painter, and that work has it ebbs and flows. It's not a 9 to 5. I mean, when I'm on a project, working on a project, I'm on the job site at 6 in the morning. I might work till 9 at night. I might do that 4 or 5 days in a row, and then I'm done. Or, sorry, it might be 3 days a week, and then through Sunday, whatever. It's just the ebb and flow of construction, and I'm not so busy that even when I had a crew for a while, I was doing a lot of commercial work for chains of restaurants and stuff like that all over the country, and we were flying around doing all these things. And that was just a little bit tedious, because there was very little creative effort into it. We were just duplicating a formula. It was sort of like, oh, I did all this wall finish, and now we're just going to paint that same wall finish over and over and over and over and over. So I trained people to do it. We did it, and then eventually I just kind of stopped doing that.
Is that what the wall finish in your yoga bedroom is?
Oh, like yeah, that's a plaster. Yeah,
it's a plaster, like the Venetian. I love that.
Yeah, we still do a bunch of. I say we. I'm so programmed. It's really just me now. I mean, but it was funny for when I was younger. I had friends from art school or just from around, and they worked with me. People that I knew, other artists that I knew, and I would hire my peers. And then, as the years went on, I was hiring slightly younger people, because those people all went and either got real jobs or started their own, or their painting career took off or whatever happened. And so then they got younger and younger, and eventually I was hiring my kids' peers. And that was great. I had all these young, people in their 20s, and they were really fun. Now they all have real jobs, and they're moving on, and I'm like, all right, I don't know who's going to work with me anymore. So I pretty much just work by myself now. But I don't take on big process jobs anymore anyway. I just do sort of bespoke things. Like I do a lot of work for the Museum of Fine Arts. I do lots of faux marble, faux bois, that kind of thing. Wow. And I always, this is sort of a pat line, but I'm going to say it anyway. If I've done a good job there, you will never know you'll never see it. So the idea is it's invisible. I've replicated the cypress for these massive columns in the Art of Japan wing, and you wouldn't know it was paint. Wow. So it's fun. That's fun. And I love...
We should get pictures of that.
I can send you pictures of that. And I love that work because it gets me out of my studio. I mean,
and that's decorative painting?
That's decorative painting. And lots of marble, marble wainscoting, marble baseboards, what are they called? Plinths and pilasters. No, there's a word. When you put a sculpture on it, it's called a base stand.
Like a base or a stand or a plinth.
Yeah. And those things sometimes have to look like they're made out of
pedestal
out of limestone, or Verde Antico marble or something like that. So I do a lot of that, and that's really fun, and I still work for them, and I love it. And that's a collaboration, and it's fun talking to somebody else. It's really fun listening to a designer's objective for a space, whether it's at the museum or whether it's in a commercial thing. I work for
and your personal ideas, or can you make suggestions around that? Like, are you doing stuff like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. It's gonna look so ugly. No,
well, I mean that I won't say that.
You won't say that, but that does happen.
I won't say that hasn't happened. Not at the museum, because those people are professionals.
Tasteful, yeah.
In people's homes, absolutely.
Really?
But they're paying a bill and I'm doing a job. And, sometimes I think it's going to look really ugly and I'm surprised. One of my other favorite clients I've been working with for about 20 years now, when they first came to me, it was these two guys. They wanted to open a Mexican restaurant in Boston, and they were like in their 20s or something, and I thought they were such cowboys. I thought they were super unsophisticated. I thought their ideas were really dumb and dated, and I was like, okay, you guys, we'll do this. But actually, it turned out to be pretty cool, and as they've gotten older and more sophisticated and opened restaurant after restaurant, I have a huge amount of admiration for them, I think, and they've hired also designers and all this kind of stuff, and I still work with them, and it's always thrilling because they really push me out of my comfort zone. I mean, I had to do this huge faux stained glass thing one time, and I had to figure out how to do it, and it was like, okay, well, there's got to be a way to do it. And what I did was I found, I made a photo collage of an actual big, stained glass altarpiece. I cut and pasted and put in all of these images from Mexican loteria card deck. So, like the sun, the heart, the, El Corazon, what is it, Aranja, the spider. So I instead of having the regular, iconography of an altarpiece, it had all of these loteria references. And it was pretty rough, right? I mean, it was, but it was only about 8 by 10. And then I took it to Kinko's copy shop, and I had them reproduce it, like, really big. So, I guess it was 8 inches, and now suddenly it was going to be 8 feet tall. And it had to be on 4 different sheets. We maxed out their big printer, and it was on film, so it was transparent, and the film was adhesive. So then they bought these big sheets of plexiglass, which were so heavy you could barely move them. My son and I had to drag them down the hill because we did them in the front hall, and it was just like we thought we were going to die when we were finished. So we took these big pieces of plastic. I took these sheets of printed imagery, put them on. They were all fuzzy because it had been blown up. It was a low res image to begin with because I just pulled it off the internet and pasted it up. But anyway, we had this thing, and then it turns out, who knew, you can from Blick buy solder. It's not real solder, like for real stained glass, but it's stuff that comes in a tube that looks like solder. So we traced every little outline
with that solder material.
With the solder material. And when that was dry, we went in with glass paint and painted it to bring the color up and make it really vibrant.
And it looked like a stained glass window.
And it looked like a stained glass window. And they installed it and lit it from behind, and it was incredible. And so that's fun, right? Like, when would you get to do that? And it was exciting to have that kind of challenge and to have to figure it out. That's why decorative painting is really fun. Now, have I brought back any of that into my own work? No, because I don't, whatever. I think stained glass is really cool, but that's not something that I want to do. Did the experience of working in a really primary palette, the blues, the yellows, the reds, with that kind of linear delineation, probably that has worked its way into the abstract work, but that was years before. So, I mean, every time I do a job, I think there's something that I learned. Probably the biggest thing from the faux marble and the faux bois stuff is the layering and the business of working with glazes. So in my landscapes, in a more traditional landscape,
let's come in,
like this one, it's a lot of layers, right?
Yeah,
it's a lot of romance. It's a lot of building up of layers. I start with a underpainting, something that looks kind of like that, and then over time I just keep putting very thin transparent layers on it until I have the depth that I want, and until I get the colors where I want them. And it just takes time. And that I do that somewhat in the abstract painting. This is an abstract piece that's also quite layered. And I think it's finished, but I'm not sure it's finished. It was in a show, and it was an older piece. I hadn't seen it for a while. I pulled it out to put it in the show, and then I thought, I wonder if I need to do some more with that. So I have it on the wall because I'm thinking about what I might want to do with it. Tim always teases me and says my paintings aren't ever finished until they're sold, which is sometimes true. And I may work on that one some more. Probably what I'll do is bring up some of these kind of blues. Like I like I like the juxtaposition of the like more opaque blue on top of the deeper blue, and I think I might want to, that's when I get into the fine tuning of it, because when they start, they're very simple and gestural. As I said, big brushes, and I'm just kind of, splashing the color on, and then gradually I bring it into focus, maybe.
Yeah. Jeremy, can you get all of that, the whole wall?
Yeah. So a lot of times, especially, I reference those cards. That's a company called Wild Apple Graphics, and they give me assignments, and sometimes I have to ship them. They're down in Woodstock, but it's not always, especially in Baltimore, it's not convenient for me to drop them off in person. So a lot of times I just paint on canvas, I staple it to the wall, I paint, I roll it up, I ship. And so the edges are from things I've painted on canvas. And sometimes I paint on canvas on the wall, and then I mount it on a wooden panel. I don't know if any of these are like that. Kind of feedback on the brush that you get from a hard surface, these are masonite. It's really easy to pull the paint off and get a crisp edge if you want it. Canvas, is nice for holding paint and layering. And then, as I said, if it's on canvas, usually the easiest. Sometimes I stretch the canvases, but a lot of times I'll just buy a crane panel like this, and this is a wooden panel, and then I just stretch. I just stretch the canvas over it. And in this case, I was experimenting with having a finished side, but I decided that's kind of, for me, I just feel like it's kind of cheesy, so I probably won't do it again. I think I'm going to change this painting, because it started to look a little more monochromatic than I feel like is interesting to me at this point, so I'll probably change it. I don't know how, and then I'll just paint the sides a color, so it can either be put in a floater frame or whatever else. And this is so. We were talking about Venetian plaster. A lot of times I use Venetian plaster as a substrate because I like the texture. Probably very little of this gray is going to be apparent. This is an old landscape that I'm abandoning. It was something I did for Wild Apple that has bored me, and there were some issues about the way the paint was making ridges on the surface. So I put the plaster over it to interrupt that, and it's going to become a beach scene, and it'll be sort of a semi-abstract one. It'll be like a boardwalk with sand dunes and stuff, and it'll have a lot of brushwork and a lot of texture.
Okay, make sure you get her and the dogs.
Yeah. And my studio assistants, it's nice to have a staff. And sometimes I trip over them. Yeah.
Wow.
So I mentioned being inspired by, art historical landscapes. I mean, these pictures that are tacked up now, I actually just came across in a Sotheby's catalog, and it was just a random auction. It was just a bunch of different stuff from different eras. My father-in-law sent it to me. He had a whole bunch of stuff he would come across in old bookstores and stuff, and he would pass them along. And they're nothing. Well, that might be an Innis, is it? No, John Francis Murphy, William Hart, William Mason Brown. Not the biggest names necessarily, but each of those paintings is kind of charming. And so they're tacked up, not because I'm going to, copy them, but there are elements in each of them that I really like. And so this photograph here is a marsh scene in kind of, dramatic late summer or early fall light. And I want to make a painting of that. The painting will be on this canvas. It'll be a 20 by 30, so it'll be elongated. It'll be like a forced horizontal. So, it won't be the format that it is. And it'll be that view of the marsh pan with the two little trees. And you can see how it relates to the painting on the left with that kind of weird indeterminate light. I like that. So, when I'm going for romance and and meditation, that's the kind of thing I like to start from. Just because it's fun. I look at that sky and I'm like, I really like the way that sky has all that. Yeah, sorry, it's all like that. I love the sky on the left. I love the Naples periwinkle stuff that happens at the edges. That could be really effective in this kind of painting with gallery wrapped edge. I probably won't frame it. I'll paint the edges that funny purpley gray, and then have it kind of bleed over the canvas.
So you took this picture.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you see in it? You just saw this relationship immediately to
No,
that?
no.
Or
No,
like,
no.
how would you see the potential of that serving
Well,
you in any way?
So I took the picture, and it's in the salt marsh in Massachusetts. And there's a couple things I like about it. I like the basic composition of like the weird little trees and their weird little shape. And then I like the fact that there's the river. I don't know if it's a salt pan or a creek, but anyway, the way it comes forward, it's a low tide. That's why you see those tussocks. So again, this is a photograph I took ages ago. I don't know if it's that the light is really stronger, like maybe it was early in the morning, and it's strong on the left, or whether that was something in the camera. Could have, I don't necessarily want really good photos when I'm using reference photos. I want them to be, and a lot of times I'll manipulate them, on my iPad or whatever. I'll run them through all these filters and change them from whatever the actual documentation was to get a mood. But I just like that it feels like something's going on off the side. And then I was looking at the painting on the left, and I mean, do they really connect? I mean, not necessarily, but there's a sort of a quietness and an understated vibe in that one on the left. And again, the trees are kind of quirky, and I just think that sky is really cool. So in the painting that I make, I'll probably try and keep it like it'll change from left to right as opposed to being more evenly balanced, I think. But we'll see how it looks. Before we moved to Vermont, we lived in Ipswich in an old farmhouse, and I had a really big studio. It was like 16 by 20 was the room. It also, though, functioned as the mudroom and the dog kennel and the potting shed. So there was a lot going on there. It was sort of like the first room that you came into when you came into the house. So even though it was a big space, it had a great, high ceiling with a barrel wall. It wasn't very private, and it's been much easier for me to work. And also it didn't have very good light. This light is great. That's basically north. So apart from the late afternoon, around this time of year, I have really good light. Okay, Doc, you guys are doing a little bit too much. I just, not paying attention to
Oh my God, Julia, this is just so amazing.
And a lot of times they just go sleep in the corner, they're not always so strenuous. I say. Still apologizing for my dog's bed. I will say with the abstract paintings, I showed you the images that I started with. I really just used that in the initial stages to kind of, block out a composition. And then I just turned to the painting. And it's just like me and the painting. I'm like, okay, where do I want to go with this? I'm not looking externally for anything. When I do landscapes, I'll be back and forth for a lot longer. Ultimately, I just also abandon the reference material, but I rely on the notes more heavily for the traditional work than I do for the abstract work. So the abstract work becomes more about just the mechanics of painting, like the color and the edges, I think more. I mean, it's not that I don't think about that in the landscape, but there's always something to refer to. When I'm doing abstract stuff, I have to just look at this and think, well, where is this actually headed? And a lot of times I try things and then I don't like them, and and there's a lot of killing one's darlings for me with the abstract work, because there'll be something that I think is really great, and I'll go for a long time trying to make the painting be about that, and then I step back and I'm like, actually, that has to go. and sometimes it's hard to do that, right? Like, you don't always want to throw something out, but sometimes it's the best choice. I don't, whatever kind of work I'm doing, I mix my color on I work with a gazillion colors. I'm not a purist about my palette. at all. Like the opposite. Like every time a new color comes out, I buy it. I'm like the paint manufacturers, best customer. I'm like, ooh, you have a slightly different shade of ultramarine. I'd like to try that. But I want to see how it works on the canvas. And I go back and forth from one to another. I never work on, I should say never. Is that true? Yeah, I don't think I ever work on just one piece at a time. I think I always have, and I often work in series.
Amazing.
Pay no attention to the giant dogs. So today I'm playing with these are new brushes for me. I often paint with chip brushes, right? Like just that's the big brush thing, and I like it because I like the way it holds the paint. It's not that precious, but I decided I needed some better brushes, and these are fun. I mean, they, it's like I'm learning about how to use them. I like the way they carry a calligraphy a little bit better. Like I can, move them around in a way that, a softer brush wouldn't do. And I'm just kind of playing to see what I can get from them.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Enough?
Yeah.
Enough from you guys. Before I unclip. Anyway, it was nice. I had the luxury of being able to paint and then really to throw myself into that because because I had a support partner and because my decorative painting was paying the bills, So like I could do decorative painting for a week and then I could spend a week in my studio and now I would say I spend more time in my studio and I would say I probably make more money selling paintings than I do doing decorative painting, but it's still nice, Like if I haven't sold a painting for a while, it's nice to know that I can go do a project and then get a paycheck, so that's good. I have to say I don't have a big ritual. I mean, when I have designated spaces, right? Like I don't have to set up and reinvent my studio every time. Even when I come from here to Baltimore, I mean, I wash my brushes, I put the top on the paint, and I leave. The paint dries on the palette, I just re-up when I get back. It's the same thing in Baltimore. So there isn't a big ramp-up time. And I feel like...
So you're not afraid of the blank canvas?
Oh, God, no. No, I mean, I can't wait to start on these. No, not at all. And it doesn't, as I say, it doesn't, all I really have to do to be in the space is be in the space, and then it happens. I mean, that's not to say that some days are easier than others. I mean, some days I feel like every mark I make is I've messed it up, ready to start again. And sometimes what's underneath can be really fun and informative. So for me, that has all been really easy. It's not a preciousness. I try not to have a preciousness. So this space down here, we thought we were so clever at buying these floor tiles, because you can pull them up and wash them if they get dirty. Yes, you can, but it's really hard to really get them clean again. Yeah. And then they, the dogs kick them around. It's really hard to put them down again. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's better than if it was just carpet. Plus, we were able to do this fun Hudson Bay thing. That was my husband's idea. Tim has a lot of great ideas. This was his idea too. I mean, I painted it, but it was his. He built that weird little switch thing. And, oh, really? Yeah. He's very clever with that kind of thing. He's a good designer. Yeah, he's more of a sculptor. I mean, yeah, he's very involved in three-dimensional.
Did he do this too?
The
work, the hog?
No, I got that. I got that in trade actually. I was doing some painting in a Spanish restaurant, and the guys, the owners of the restaurant came. This is Boris. They were getting rid of Boris, and then I think her name is Lucia. Is one of the birds upstairs. And,
like real.
Yeah. Like,
Oh, okay.
I mean, he wasn't a live pig. He was a decoration.
Oh,
But they were-
okay.
No. So they were no, this was a crown that I made for Tim to be a king in the 4th of July parade. We just thought Boris deserved to have that.
Oh, right, so we're going out this way.
Like I was on this one, we did it a couple of weeks ago at the Brooklyn Museum in their big atrium, and they had these giant like bubbles. They were like the size of a room. I mean, they had to have been, 10 by 20, like 10 by 10 by 20. It was huge, and they were inflated, and they were transparent, and they were lit from inside. So if you can imagine a balloon that had light inside, that you could, float up to the ceiling and then move around wherever you needed this soft glow of light. It was the coolest thing. I thought if I had a loft someday, I would love to. I wouldn't want them that big because they would just be huge, but maybe 4 by 4, 5 by 5, like a 5 by 5 by 5 cube of light that you could just move around.
Yeah,
like
that's
if you
cool.
went to light your dinner table, or that's really cool. What is success to me? Well, usually, whichever kind of painting I'm painting, there's a moment where I look at it and I'm like, I got it. And what it is isn't something that I would have been able to, or maybe can't articulate when it's finished. And I don't always know when I start. It's not as though I have some clear image in mind and it's just, painting until I've got that image. It's usually a feeling I'm trying to get. And then I recognize it when I see it. So.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Did you get this background too?
It's pretty weird that we have the American flag in here. That's in honor of my son-in-law, who is a designer, and just feels that the American flag is a quintessentially excellent piece of design. He loves the balance of the color. He loves the three colors. I mean, it's hard for me to look at the American flag and not, have all this associations with it. So the fact that it's here in the background is pretty weird, but oh well.
Yeah.
I guess we need to take every opportunity we can to reclaim it.
Yeah.